Have you ever been to a haunted house or a carnival funhouse? You know the drill. You walk through the dark corridors, jump scares happen, and you see those fake skeletons or hanging bodies in the corner. You know they're fake. They're made of wax, plastic, or rubber. You laugh it off and go home. But what if I told you that for 60 years, thousands of Americans paid a nickel to stare at what they thought was a fake dummy, but was actually a real, rotting human corpse? This sounds like an urban legend, but it is 100% true. This is the story of Elmer McCurdy, a man who was a terrible criminal in life, but became a legend after his death. His body traveled across the USA, starred in movies, and hung in funhouses with nobody realizing they were looking at a dead man. If you want to know how a Wild West outlaw ended up as a carnival prop, hit that like button. And if you're new here, smash subscribe because this story gets weird. Let's dig him up. Chapter 1. The Scene of the Crime, 1976. To tell this story, we have to start at the end. December 8, 1976, Long Beach, California. A television production crew was setting up to film an episode of the popular show The $6 Million Man. They were filming inside a spooky amusement park attraction called the Laugh in the Dark Funhouse at the New Pike Amusement Park. The set designers were moving some of the props around to make the scene look scarier. In the corner of the room, hanging from a noose, was a neon orange painted dummy that looked like an old cowboy. It was covered in layers of glow-in-the-dark paint. It looked ridiculous. One of the crew members grabbed the dummy's arm to move it. Snap! The arm broke off. The crew member sighed, annoyed that he had broken a prop. He looked down at the broken arm to see if he could glue it back on. He froze. Inside the arm, there was no plastic. There was no metal wire. Sticking out of the center of the arm was a human bone, and surrounding the bone was dried, mummified muscle tissue. The crew member screamed. The police were called. The coroner arrived and cut into the chest of the dummy. He found a human lung. This wasn't a prop. It was a human body. And inside its mouth, they found a penny from 1924 and a ticket stub from a museum in Los Angeles. Who was this man, and how did he end up painted neon orange in a funhouse in 1976? Chapter 2. The Worst Bandit in the West. To find the answer, we have to go back 65 years. The year is 1911. The place is Oklahoma. Meet Elmer McCurdy. Elmer McCurdy wanted to be a legendary outlaw. He wanted to be like Jesse James or Butch Cassidy. The problem was, Elmer was an idiot. He was arguably the worst bandit in American history. He was an alcoholic, grumpy, and not very bright. He decided his specialty would be robbing trains using nitroglycerin, a powerful explosive. But Elmer never learned how to measure it properly. In his first major robbery, he tried to blow open a safe on a train. He used way too much explosive. Boom! He didn't just open the safe, he vaporized it. The explosion was so hot that it melted the silver coins inside. The silver fused into the walls of the train car. Elmer and his gang spent hours trying to scrape the melted silver off the walls with knives, but eventually gave up and ran away with barely any money. Chapter 3. The Final Mistake. October 1911. Elmer decided to try one last big score. He heard a rumor that a Katy train was carrying $400,000 in cash meant for the Osage Native American tribe. This was it, the big one. Elmer and two accomplices stopped the train. They held the conductor at gunpoint. They blew the safe, using too much explosive again. But when the smoke cleared, the safe was empty. They had stopped the wrong train. The train with the money had passed by 2 hours earlier. This train was a passenger train carrying mail. Elmer managed to steal $46 in cash, 2 jugs of whiskey, a coat, and the conductor's watch. That was it, $46. Depressed and drunk on the stolen whiskey, Elmer rode to a nearby ranch and fell asleep in a barn. He didn't even bother to set a lookout. The next morning, a posse of sheriffs surrounded the barn. They yelled for him to surrender. Elmer, hungover and angry, started shooting. The shootout lasted an hour. Finally, a single bullet from a sheriff hit Elmer in the chest. Elmer McCurdy died on October 7, 1911. He was 31 years old. A failed criminal who died for $46 and some whiskey. Usually, this is where a story ends, but for Elmer, this was just the beginning. Chapter 5. The Mummy in the Window. Elmer's body was taken to a funeral home in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. The undertaker, a man named Joseph Johnson, waited for Elmer's family to come claim the body. Nobody came. Elmer was an orphan and a drifter. No one wanted him. In those days, embalming was done with arsenic. Arsenic is a heavy metal poison, but it is an incredible preservative. Johnson pumped Elmer's body full of arsenic. He shaved Elmer's face, dressed him in a suit, and laid him out. Weeks passed, still no family. Johnson realized he wasn't going to get paid for the funeral, so he decided to make his money a different way. He stood Elmer's corpse up in the corner of the funeral home. He put a rifle in his hands. He put a sign around his neck that read, "The Bandit Who Wouldn't Give Up." Then he opened the doors. He charged people 5 cents to come in and see the famous dead outlaw. It was a hit. People lined up around the block. The arsenic turned Elmer's skin hard and leathery, effectively turning him into a mummy. For 5 years, Elmer stood in that funeral home, making the undertaker rich 1 nickel at a time. Chapter 6. The Brothers. In 1916, a carnival came to town. The carnival owner, a man named James Patterson, saw the popularity of the corpse and wanted to buy it. He offered to buy Elmer. The undertaker refused. "He's a gold mine," he said. A few days later, 2 men walked into the funeral home. They looked sad and serious. "We are Elmer's long-lost brothers," one of them said, crying. "We saw his picture in the newspaper. We want to take our dear brother home to California and give him a proper Christian burial." The undertaker felt guilty. He couldn't deny the family. He released the body to the brothers. But here is the twist. They weren't his brothers. They were actually James Patterson, the carnival owner, and his partner in disguise. They took the corpse, loaded it onto a train, and immediately put it in their traveling circus show. Elmer McCurdy was now officially a circus freak.
Chapter 6. The Great American Road Trip. After the carnival owner stole Elmer's body in 1916, the dead outlaw began a tour of America that would last for decades. For the next 50 years, Elmer McCurdy traveled more than any living person of his time. He was displayed in sideshows, traveling circuses, and freak shows across the country. But as time went on, people forgot who he was. The name Elmer McCurdy was lost. The carnival owners changed his story to fit whatever the crowd wanted to see. In Texas, he was labeled the outlaw who wouldn't be taken alive. In a crime museum, he was the ancient mummy. In one show, they claimed he was a 1,000-year-old man found in a cave. His body began to deteriorate. The arsenic kept him from rotting, but he was shrinking. His skin turned hard and black. His ears crumbled off. His fingers broke. To cover up the damage, different owners would fix him up. They dipped him in wax. They painted his skin. At one point, someone seemingly painted him neon orange to make him glow under black lights. He stopped looking like a human and started looking like a papier-mâché doll. Chapter 7. Elmer the Movie Star. In the 1930s and 40s, Elmer actually landed a role in Hollywood. A director needed a prop for a film called She, 1935. They rented Elmer from a local sideshow. If you watch that movie today, in the background of a scene, you can see the real corpse of Elmer McCurdy standing there as a prop. He also appeared in a low-budget exploitation film called Narcotic, 1933, where he played a dead drug addict. The cast and crew of these movies had no idea they were standing next to a real dead body. They just thought he was a very realistic, very smelly mannequin. Chapter 8. The Funhouse Dungeon. By the late 1960s, Elmer was looking rough. He'd been sold from owner to owner, eventually ending up with the Sunny Amusement Enterprise. They didn't know what to do with him, so they loaned him to the New Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California. The park owners didn't think he was real. They thought he was just a grotesque old Halloween decoration. They hung him by a noose in the corner of the Laugh in the Dark Funhouse. For years, thousands of teenagers rode the funhouse carts in the dark. They would scream as they passed the hanging man, throwing popcorn or spitting at him. Elmer McCurdy, the failed bandit, hung there in the dark, covered in neon paint, completely forgotten by the world, until that fateful day in 1976 when the TV crew broke his arm. Chapter 9. The Forensics. Back to 1976, the coroner had just discovered the human bone in the arm. The LAPD took the body to the morgue. But who was he? The famous coroner, Dr. Thomas Noguchi, who performed autopsies on Marilyn Monroe and Robert F. Kennedy, took the case. He began to peel away the layers of paint and wax. He found something incredible. The bullet wound. There was a bullet hole in the chest, consistent with a gunshot from 1911. The arsenic. Toxicology reports showed the body was preserved with arsenic, a method that stopped being used in the 1920s. The clue. But the smoking gun was found inside Elmer's mouth. They found the ticket stub to the Museum of Crime in Los Angeles and the 1924 penny. Using old police records and photographs from 1911, they matched the body's measurements and the bullet wound to the infamous Elmer McCurdy. The news went global. The Funhouse mummy is identified. After 65 years, the lost bandit had been found. Chapter 10. The Final Ride. The state of Oklahoma heard the news and demanded the return of their bad son. On April 22, 1977, a funeral procession was held in Guthrie, Oklahoma. It was a massive event. Cowboys, historians, and news crews from all over the world attended. Elmer was more famous in death than he ever was in life. But the town officials were worried. Elmer had been stolen once before by the fake brothers. They didn't want him to end up in another carnival. So they ordered a special burial. They placed Elmer in a coffin. They lowered the coffin into the grave at the Summit View Cemetery, Boot Hill. Then they called in a cement truck. They poured 2 cubic yards of wet concrete over the casket, sealing Elmer McCurdy inside a solid block of stone. Epilogue. The Legacy. Today, if you visit the Summit View Cemetery in Guthrie, Oklahoma, you can find Elmer's grave. He is buried right next to another famous outlaw, Bill Doolin. But while Doolin was a successful bank robber, Elmer is the star attraction. People still leave coins on his grave, usually nickels, the same price the Undertaker charged to see him back in 1911. Elmer McCurdy was a failure as a bandit. He never made any money. He was shot sleeping in a barn. But he managed to achieve the one thing every outlaw wanted: immortality. He just had to wait 60 years and hang in a funhouse to get it. So, the next time you're at a carnival or a haunted house and you see a creepy-looking dummy in the corner, take a closer look. Look at the hands. Look at the eyes. Because you never know. It might just be plastic, or it might be another Elmer waiting for someone to break his arm and tell his story. Guys, thank you for watching this crazy journey. If you enjoyed the story of Elmer McCurdy, please hit that like button. And let me know in the comments, would you visit a museum to see a real mummy, or is that too creepy for you? Subscribe for more true history that is stranger than fiction. I'll see you in the next video.